Hello, I'm Mike Cleary, and welcome to Happy New You. There's a famous poem by Robert Frost called The Road Not Taken. In it, he recalls happening upon a fork in the road, leading through a yellow wood. The traveler has to choose which way to go. The poem begins with, "Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both." The traveler has a choice to make. A simple one, it would seem, whether to turn left or right, to take the more traveled path or the road less taken. Quite often, we come to a fork in the road and choose to take one way or the other, not contemplating what might have happened had we chosen differently. Frost concludes the poem with the verse, "I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." In the phrase, ages and ages hence, he's saying that even though it seemed to be a simple decision at the time, many years later, he still contemplates that particular choice that he made. Many times, we find ourselves tracing back in our minds to certain decisions that we made along the way and the paths that we had chosen. And we wonder how things might have turned out differently if we had chosen differently. I remember a film I saw some time ago. It was called About Time. It's kind of a sleeper movie that not many people heard about. I love this particular film because it's not only entertaining, but it gives the viewer plenty of food for thought as well. I believe the best movies are those that make us think, that challenge us to consider other possibilities and not just sit back and be amused. Anyway, in this movie, a young man discovers that he has the ability to go back in time. He's able to go back and change events of the past, but only in his own life. He can only undo and redo things that he has done. The young man is able to correct mistakes that he has made, to choose a different path than the one that he had taken. Of course, there are repercussions to his actions, and more than a few times, the man goes back to do things differently, again and again, until he finally gets the outcome that he desires. He discovers that even in going back and choosing differently, things sometimes don't always work out the way we want. Wouldn't it be great if we had a do-over and change some of the choices that we made in the past? How many times have we told ourselves, if I'd only known at the time, I wouldn't have done that? We often fantasize and romanticize how life would be like if we had lived our lives differently. Unfortunately, though, no one's life's journey is free of challenges. Every person has had to face difficulties and hardships along the way. Listen to some of the stories told by your friends about the hard times that they had to overcome in their lives. Read the biographies of famous people and about the obstacles that they had to face. No life is ideal. No choice is ever the perfect choice. As with the movie that I mentioned earlier, we can imagine a better life than that which we are living, but changing some of the choices we made may alter events, but not make us different or better people in the overall scheme of things. We might choose something different, but we wouldn't necessarily be different. But you may ask, what about those fairy tales we heard about when we were young? Those characters who had lived happily ever after. Therein lies the secret clue. And they lived happily. Those fairy tale princes and princesses lived happily ever after. Life isn't all roses and rainbows. Everything isn't simply handed to a person and suddenly everything is all better. You see, it isn't about the choices that you make, but the living with those choices that makes us all the difference. The good news is you can live happily ever after too. Now you may ask, how is that possible? How can I live a dream come true? Well, I have something of a revelation for you. You are currently living the life that you have chosen for yourself. Whoa, what? That's right. Where you are and who you are right this very moment is a culmination of all the choices and decisions that you made throughout your entire life. Not just the result of one choice. Not just from taking one fork in the road, but from all of them. Sometimes when I'm daydreaming and my mind drifts back to the many forks in the road that I encountered on my life's journey that led me to this direction or in that direction, was there a unique turning point? What was the one particular choice that I had made that led me to where I am today? Even if it was possible for a person to go back in time and change one exact moment to pinpoint the one specific choice that was made and do it differently, think of all the repercussions that it would cause. If you somehow changed your past, you wouldn't have the friends you have today. You wouldn't have had all the experiences, all the travels, and the sights, and the insights that has made you the unique individual that you are. Imagine all the joys and lessons that you would have missed out on if things had worked out differently. There's an interesting philosophical expression used in the film The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. Where you are right now is the result of the choices that you have made along your life's journey. If you're not happy with how things worked out, don't despair. Perhaps you're not done choosing yet. As I said, if it's not all right, it's not the end. Imagine yourself walking through an immense labyrinth. You're winding down long corridors, through twists and turns, and the occasional U-turns and setbacks. Perhaps the reason you're not out of the maze yet is because there are still some choices that you have to make, some forks in the road you have yet to encounter. Our fairy tale heroine Cinderella didn't meet her Prince Charming until she went to the ball. They didn't live happily ever after until the prince had her try on the glass slipper. There may be some roads that you have yet to travel, and some things that you still need to learn before your lesson is over. Coming back to the fork in the road, choosing left or right, the well-traveled path or the road less taken, is simply a decision that you must make. Doesn't make it good or bad. Good decisions often have a price to pay, and poor decisions can offer valuable lessons for us to learn. It's how we feel about those choices that makes all the difference. We can agonize about all the poor choices that we made in our lives, or we can accept that who we are, the kind of person we are, and the wisdom that we have gained is a result of all those choices that we made along the way, the good as well as the bad. Just like the characters that we read about in those marvelous fairy tales, we too can live happily ever after if we choose to do so. I have a song about the travels and trials that we face along Journey's life. We may feel at times that we're facing those challenges alone, but the truth of the matter is that others are also facing their own challenges, and that we're not alone. Sometimes your trials are like a chasm. You can hardly see to the other side. It seems so hard to cross it, far and deep and oh so wide. You may feel lost upon an endless ocean, tossed about a restless sea, set adrift with no star to guide you. You wonder where that distant shore can be. Oh, but you, you are not alone. As you wander down that road so far from home, don't despair, don't give up. Keep your eye on where you're going and your heart on always knowing that you are never alone. Your troubles are like a mountain rising high, so high into the sky. You do not know can surely climb it, or even have the will to try. But there are others climbing with you. Every soul has their trials too. When you ease another's burden, you'll see what strength in numbers can do. And when you, yes you, oh, you are not alone. As you wander down that road so far from home, don't despair, don't give up. Keep your eye on where you're going and your heart on always knowing that you are never alone. Don't despair, don't give up. Keep your eye on where you're going and your heart on always knowing that you are never alone. You are not alone. You are not alone. Don't go away. We'll be back after these announcements. Welcome back. I'm Mike Cleary, and this is Happy New You. I often notice how some folks can get so frustrated with their lives and feel as though their existence does not matter to anyone. They ask themselves, what difference have I made in this world? What impact has my life made in the grand scheme of things? Will anyone remember me after I'm gone? People feel as though they need to do something spectacular in order to make their mark upon humanity. They feel as though they have to make some kind of monumental contribution in order to be remembered at all. I once heard the story about a man who was observing a young girl walking along a sandy beach. There had been a severe storm the night before that churned up the water and deposited starfish all along the beach. Every once in a while, the girl would stop, pick up a starfish that had washed up on shore, and tossed it back into the ocean. Many starfish lay helpless on the sand, baking in the hot sun. The young girl would pick up one and the creatures and toss it back into the water. Well, the man called to her and asked, "Why are you doing that? You're wasting your time. There are too many of them to make a difference." The little girl looked at the man, looked out at the water, and back at him and said, "Made a difference to that one." A small act of compassion or gentle words of kindness can be as monumental to someone as a colossal achievement. Helping a person in need can impact that individual their entire life and be remembered far longer than any spectacular accomplishment. In 1997, I was driving down the highway from my home in Northwest Arkansas to Little Rock when a story flashed into my mind. That's usually what happens to me. An entire novel just pops into my brain and plays out like a movie in my head. Days or even weeks later, I can recall characters, locations, storyline, and even dialogue. As I sat in my motel room that night, I jotted down some notes on a legal pad and just promptly forgot about it. Several weeks later, I was having dinner with some friends of mine, Don and Sue Ellen Rogers, and I just casually mentioned that story that had come to my mind. Sue Ellen's eyes grew wide and she was visibly shaking with excitement. "You have to write that book," she said. "You have to write it." So over the next few days, I fleshed out a rough draft and gave it to her to evaluate. Sue Ellen was downright giddy with enthusiasm, and she encouraged me to have it published. I found an editor and a proofreader and created a cover design with another friend of mine and had the book published in 1998, and that was my very first novel. Since then, I have published nearly 50 others. To this day, I credit Sue Ellen Rogers for beginning my writing career. If she hadn't been so insistent about me writing that story, I might never have become a novelist. Simple, sincere words of encouragement to a friend or a colleague may be all it takes to change their lives forever. The poet Maya Angelou wrote, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." One practice that I try to do as much as possible is learn the names of people who are providing me with a service, such as waiting on a table in a restaurant or checking out my groceries in the store. I tell them, "Thank you for taking care of me. And I always find something about them to comment about. Like, that's an unusual spelling of your name, I might say, or I like those earrings that you have on. One thoughtful, sincere observation may be just what is needed to put a positive note on a bad day they're having. Your hairstyle is very cute, or that necklace and bracelet accessorizes your wardrobe quite nicely. A compliment can brighten a person's day and give their spirits a lift. Who knows how a small gesture of kindness can affect a person, perhaps days or even weeks later. We often never know what significance our words and actions have on others. A kind gesture to a stranger can be remembered for decades. A comforting word to a friend, or offering assistance when needed, can be the turning point in someone's life. Unfortunately, the opposite is also true. Words of negativity and offhanded criticism can have an impact that lasts an entire lifetime. My younger brother Jim told me of a comment that was made to him when he was in grammar school. Now, back then, all the kids had to attend chorus and practice their singing. Jim was told by the teacher to sing quieter because she said he didn't have a good singing voice. 50 years later, my younger brother still remembers that remark. To this day, Jim harbors the belief in the back of his mind that he doesn't sing well. That one casual comment made an impact on a child's life that has lasted a lifetime. Not only do our lives have meaning, but our words and actions can affect others more than we realize. Be mindful of what we say to others. Be mindful of what we say to ourselves. Your brain can't recognize the difference between what it hears from others and what it hears from us. If we berate ourselves for making a mistake, or call ourselves cruel names, even jokingly, it cannot tell what is true or what is not true. Be kind in your words and in your deeds. You may never know the impact your words or actions can have upon others in this world. Though you may not realize it, your life does have meaning, and you do make a difference. I recall the ending of the show Camelot, where King Arthur is wallowing in the depths of despair, feeling as though all that he had done was crumbling to dust, and none of it mattered to anyone. A small lad approaches Arthur and tells him of how he learned of the king and his Knights of the Round Table through stories that he had heard. Arthur did not realize that others were relating tales of their exploits. The king did not know what impact he and his men had made on other people's lives. Have you ever dropped a pebble into a clear, still pond and watched the waves ripple away from the center? That's what happens when we affect those around us with our words and our actions. We only see the immediate result, the pebble plopping into the water. What we don't see are the ripples that extend far beyond our perception. What we do in each moment can have lasting results on others and in the world. I'm sure you all know about the original Star Trek series starring William Shatner as Captain Kirk and Leonard Nimoy as Mr. Spock. Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, was thinking about leaving the series early in the first season to pursue a singing career on Broadway. At a fundraiser event, Nichelle met with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who claimed that he was a big fan of Star Trek. He told Nichelle that her character on the show had a great impact on television. This was back in the mid-1960s, where women and blacks were rarely shown in roles of authority or positions of command. Ms. Nichols took his advice and decided to stay on the series. The character of Lieutenant Uhura became an icon for millions of viewers and continued to inspire women to pursue noteworthy careers. For decades afterward, she spoke to audiences across the country, recruiting women and minorities into the space program. We don't have to make some spectacular achievement in order to impact on the world. Sometimes all we need is just to be ourselves. Of course, I have a song that goes with that about making your impact on the world, and it's called All the Good You Do. You think you gotta break a record or perform some heroic deed to make your mark and have your name go down in history. You may not ever realize you've already done your part. You make a lasting impression when you touch somebody's heart. Don't think you're not important or your contribution small. Life means much to those you touch, folks who may not know it all. This world's a little brighter place because we all have you. No, you may not ever realize all the good you do. We all want to be remembered and last far beyond our days, to share some immortality in our own small private way. But you do live on when you help someone and it becomes your legacy. Good deeds you did, good crimes you said, will last all eternity. Don't think you're not important or your contribution small. Your life means much to those you touch, folks who may not know it all. This world's a little brighter place because we all have you. You may not ever realize all the things you do. Don't think you're not important or your contribution small. Your life means much to those you touch, folks who may not know it all. This world's a little brighter place because we all have you. No, you may not ever realize all the good you do. No, you may not ever realize all the good you do. I'm Mike Cleary. Have a wonderful, blessed day.